surface area. Anyone know what surface area is?
The area of
And then what? All of it, yes. So it is all of the sides of your shape, every single one of them. So it's like when you guys are wrapping a gift, right? You're wrapping it with wrapping paper, correct? Okay? That you're wrapping the surface area of that gift. You're not wrapping what's inside of it, you're wrapping the outside of it. Does that make sense, guys? So surface area is the sum of the area of each face. We call the sides faces of a 3D figure. Okay, so surface area is the sum of an area of each face of a 3D figure. So in order to calculate the surface area of a 3D figure, you need to find the area of each face and take the sum of all the faces. Which means find the area of every single side and add them all together. So in order to do this, we have to know how to find the area of a square, a rectangle, and a triangle all separately. So what's the formula for a square, everyone? Area equals base times height. You could say length times width. I just say base times height because then it stays consistent, but it means the same thing, okay? Rectangle, what's the formula for a rectangle? Base times height, same thing. You could write length and width, means the same thing. And then what's the formula for a triangle? Have to make sure you know those formulas in order to solve all of your faces to then be able to add them all together. Got it, guys? Okay. So down below, what we're going to do is we're going to label each section, meaning each face of our shapes, to find the area of each section. So that way, that's what you do to then add it all together. So first of all, what shape is this one here? Cube. And in a cube, every single side is a what? Square, which means to find the area of every single side, we do what? So I'm going to write base times height in every single square. Now, cubes are the easy ones because in a cube, every single side is the same. So if every single side is the same, if one side is 2, they all are 2. Every single side. So I'm going to take a colored pen. Try and get one that you guys can easily see. I'm going to take a colored pen, and every single side is going to be the same. If one side is 2, they all are 2. And while you guys are getting out colors, get out 3. You'll need 3. Or you'll want 3. Okay, so question, guys. If every side in this cube is 2, what's the area of one square? What's the area of one square, everyone? 4, because 2 times 2 is 4, right, guys? Which means if this square is 4, this square is what? 4. And this square is what? 4. They're all 4, right, guys? Which means what's the surface area of the entire cube if each square is 4? How'd you figure that out? That's why I say cubes are the easiest, because they're all the same. Does that make sense, guys? Questions on cubes at all? Okay, what's this middle one? Square pyramid. Now, as I told you earlier, guys, we are not going to solve for square pyramids. You totally can. You would know how to do it. You're just not being tested on it, any of that sort of stuff, because you'd find the area of the base. How do I find the area of this base, you guys? Base times height. And then how do I find the area of the triangles? And what's going to be true about all the triangles? They're all going to be the same. They're all going to be equal. So you could figure it out. You're not being tested on it this year. Is that understood? Okay. But you are being tested on this last one. What's this last one called? A rectangular prism. And how do we find the area of every single one of these rectangles? All right, I'm going to write base times height in every single one of these. So every single side is base times height. Yes, guys? But the difference between a rectangular prism and a cube is a rectangular prism, not all sides are the same, correct? Okay, so let's take one of our colors. And if I color this line, whatever that color is, so whatever color you chose, what do we know to be true about rectangles? If that line is that color, what other lines should be that color? All the ones that are going up and down, right, guys? Or side to side, but the same direction. Which means if one of those lines is 4, they're all 4. Does that make sense, guys? Because they're rectangles. That's said to be true about rectangles. One side's 4, the other side has to be 4. Okay, what if we take another color? And I color that one. I'm coloring mine blue. You can pick whatever color. I know it's kind of hard to see on this green paper. What other colors would be that same color? All the ones that are going that exact same direction, right, guys? Any others should be that same color? Abram? For this one?
Yes.
Yes, you are correct. These should also be that color that we colored the top ones. Because if we were to fold it, right, and we were to put it all back together into a rectangular prism, this is the bottom of my rectangular prism, right, guys? Which means this is and the top of your rectangular prism and the bottom of your rectangular prism have to be exactly the same, don't they? So if the area of this rectangular prism is 12, the area of this rectangular prism also has to be 12. Correct, guys? Does that make sense? Okay, let's take one more color. And if I were to color this one that color, what else would I color that one? I color that one the same. What else? Because remember, if these were top and bottom, these are the sides that are around it, correct? And if top and bottom are the same, the two sides have to be the same, right? Which means if the area of this one is 6, the area of this one is also 6, because rectangulars have to be the same. Does that make sense, guys? Now what about these two? What color, or which one should this bottom line be? What color does it match up with? These two sides should match up, right guys? When we fold this up and fold it in, these two sides match up, which means these two are the same, which means these two are the same. Which means if this one is 4, the area of that one is also 4. There is always two rectangles that have the exact same area. Does that make sense, guys? Questions on that? This is true for every single rectangular prism. Got it, guys? Now, there are times where you'll have two sides that are exactly the same. Like we could have a 2, and a 6. That's okay. They'll always be the same. So, we don't want to draw out a net for every single problem, right, guys? We want to be able to do this without nets. So that's what we're going to do. So everyone switch to this page, which is the next page. We're going to look at problem number 1. Okay, in problem number 1, they give you a rectangular prism. Hopefully you guys can all tell that that's a rectangular prism. And then they tell you what the sides are. They only give you 3 sides, but based on those 3 sides, you should be able to figure out the entire thing. So when you look at that rectangular prism, someone raise their hand and tell me what's one rectangle that you see that you could find the area of. Aubrey.
14 times 2.
Good. So everyone write a 1 and write 14 times 2. That's one rectangle. So what's the area of that one rectangle? And what do we know is true? If one side is 28, the other side has to be what? So what can I do here? Times it by 2. So then 28 times 2 is what? 56. So I know that the area of my 2 sides of my rectangular prism add together to be 56. What's another rectangle that you guys see? Eva?
18 times 2.
18 times 2. What's 18 times 2, everyone?
36.
What?
36.
Everyone should be able to answer me. If you're not answering me, it tells me that you're doing work without listening. Now what do I do? And what's 36 times 2? So now I have 4 rectangles because I have the 2 that were 14 times 2 and I have the 2 that are 18 times 2. What is the last rectangle that we see? Sophie? 18 times 14. This one you'll most likely have to use your calculator for because most of you probably don't have that memorized. And probably a lot of you can't do that in your head. And that's okay. What's 18 times 14, everyone? And if, let's say, the top is 252, that means the bottom has to be what? So we're going to multiply that by 2. And then what's 252 times 2, everyone?
504.
So we now have all 6 rectangles, the area of all 6 rectangles. Does that make sense, guys? What do we do now? Okay, add it all together for me. What do we get, everyone? And what's my label? We're talking about what in this problem, guys? Area. And what is area always going to be? Squared. Remember, guys, I always said if we're talking about area, it's always squared. Doesn't matter what type of area, area is always squared. Questions? Morgan.
So you basically multiply everything by another number in the problem?
Yep. So, if I just gave you 3 numbers, guys. Let's say I gave you the numbers, I gave you this problem right here, but I didn't give you a rectangular prism to go with it. How could you figure out what needs to be multiplied by what? Like, how would you know without a picture?
You can just multiply 2 together and then multiply the different 2 and then multiply the rest.
Absolutely. Does anyone know what that's called? Where you take these two, multiply these two together, these two, multiply these two together, and those two multiply by that together?
Is it surface area?
Well, that's what we're solving, yes. But no, I just want to know, like, how do you know what that's called? You guys ever heard of where we're talking about that's our possible combinations? Where we have a number of combinations that we can put together? Okay? So, that's your combinations. That's all you can have. You can't, there's no more possible combinations. That's what it is. Does that make sense, guys? Okay, so let's do number 2. And then you guys will work with your partner after number 2. So someone tell me, what 2 things can I multiply together, Bella?
96 times 41.
Okay, everyone write 96 times 41 and do the math in that calculator for me. What do we get, everyone? 3,936. And what do we do now?
Times 2.
Multiply that by 2. What do we get? 7,872. Okay, someone tell me what else can I multiply together? Isabel. 41 times 38. Everyone do that for me. What is it, everyone? 1,558. What do I do now? Multiply that by 2, please. What do we get, everyone? 3,116, right? All right, what's the last one? 96 times 38. What do we get, everyone? 3,648. And what do we do now? Times it by 2. What do we get, everyone?
7,296.
And what do we do now? And what do we get, everyone? What? Feet squared. Questions, you guys? Okay, before I have you guys start working, okay, my one piece of advice is to always double check the math in the calculator. Is that understood? Okay, just like it's easy to make a mistake when we're handwriting stuff out, it's just as easy to make a mistake in the calculator because you could type one wrong number in and get the answer wrong. Is that understood? So I would almost always, especially on these numbers that get really large, almost double check your work. Especially because you have a calculator, it shouldn't take you long to double check your work, so please double check your work to make sure you're getting it correct. Is that clear? Okay, I'm going to stop this